Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm Nicole with Bushel and Designs. Today we are working on a vinyl and foil flake split tumbler. I know that my tutorial from the other day was named something similar, and this is similar-ish, but not so similar that it's the same, if that makes sense. So I'm using this beautiful vinyl from 311 Co. It is printed on clear, so I needed to do a little prep work before we put this vinyl on the tumbler, and I wanted to do a split because I wanted to use this beautiful blue glitter from Sandy's Organized Chaos. It matched so perfectly. I got this in, I'd say back in December when she was still doing her monthly chaos boxes. She no longer does those at the moment, but you can still shop on her website. And I've been dying to use it with the perfect vinyl. So when I was going through all my vinyls and matching up glitters for inspiration and stuff, this just was like they were meant to be together. So I taped off a little bit on the bottom portion of the tumbler because I'm going to paint that. Actually, I'm going to not paint it. I'm going to paint on some not glitter glue, foil glue. I love using this for glitter because it's just dry instantly. You don't have to wait for it to dry. And this glitter, it's called Teal and Great. It's like an ultra fine glitter. It is ultra fine, so I thought about burnishing it into the tumbler, but I loved the sparkle and I thought that the foil glue would hold it on perfectly well since it is such a fine glitter. So I painted on that foil glue and then I dried it with my heat gun, and then I'm just going to apply all of that glitter. Look how pretty it is. It has such a beautiful color shift. I really love this glitter. It's so pretty. After that was applied, I immediately pulled up all of that painter's tape, and then I'm going to give the remaining stainless a coat of white paint. I did not want to tape off that bottom blue glitter because it does not have a coat of epoxy yet, so I didn't want to chance getting any spray paint on it, and I think it was raining this day as well, so I'm going to use chalk paint. This is my favorite. It's just the Waverly brand that I get at Walmart, and I love using chalk paint actually because it gives such good thick coverage. Sometimes you only need one coat. I did paint on a coat, and then I'm going to just get a scoop of paint from on my paintbrush and then mix it with a little bit of Crystal glitter glue, and then I'm going to just apply that over the first dried coat of paint. Once I had a good even coverage on all of that white area with the glitter glue and the paint, I'm going to go in with frosting from Diamonds and Dust. This white glitter is so pretty. It has a really soft, light color shift in tones of like lavenders and blues, which was so perfect to match and coordinate with this vinyl and that blue glitter on the bottom portion of this tumbler. So once I had all of that applied, I set it aside for a few hours, let it dry, and then I gave it 2 coats of Rust-Oleum's clear glossy spray paint, and then once that was dry, I gave it a coat of epoxy. It only needed 1 coat this round, but if you do need to do a little sanding, make sure you add a second coat of epoxy before applying the vinyl. If you apply the vinyl over a sanded surface, because it is a transparent vinyl, you will see those rough edges because it will not the epoxy will not be able to shine it up because of that vinyl. So just make sure you are applying it on a smooth, glossy surface. So I'm going to wrap that around, make sure it's lined up pretty straight. Again, because I left a little excess to hang over the bottom and the top. If it's not lined up perfectly, you won't know because we are going to trim it off. So I'm going to just apply it using the traditional hinge method. I cut off a little of the backing, and then I'm going to lay it down and use my squeegee to push off that backing and basically let it lay down itself. And then once I have that wrapped around, we are going to do some trimming of this vinyl. One thing I love about this transparent vinyl from 311 Co. is it is removable, so it lifts very easily if you do need to peel it up for any reason. I had a little bit of a bubble here, as you can kind of see, so it was no problem. It didn't stretch out my vinyl or anything to just lift it and then lay it back down. And then I'm just going in very carefully, trying not to get any bubbles, and pushing down on that vinyl with the felt edge of my squeegee and just pushing out any bubbles towards the top or the bottom. And if I do have a few, I'm just using my X-Acto knife here and popping them and then squishing them down again with that felt edge of the squeegee. I'm going to trim off this excess, and then I'm going to trim off the bottom and the top row first, and then how I'm going to trim it at the end, because it is a transparent vinyl, where it overlaps, you can really see the overlap, and to some people it wouldn't be a bother, but it does bother me. And actually I lied, I'm going to trim this off before I do the top and the bottom. And the way I'm going to do it is go kind of towards just in the middle of that overlap, and then I'm going to peel off the excess on the top, and then also where I cut down the bottom layer so that you just have one single layer and they line up. I don't think I explained that very well, but I'm basically cutting through all the layers where they overlap and then peeling off all of those excess layers, so the top and the very bottom layer, so that you just have one layer and they meet exactly lined up. I hope that helps explain it a little bit better. But then I'm going to trim off on the bottom where that blue vinyl or that blue glitter starts, and then also trim off on the very top edge. I forgot to mention or share it earlier, but this is called African Violet. It is from 311 Co. and I did choose to get it in the transparent finish. And then once I had that vinyl applied and all trimmed off, I am using this holographic silver vinyl from, I believe it's Tech Wrap Crafts, and I'm going to stripe out where the vinyl and the blue glitter meet, and then I'm going to add a center stripe in a blue color. I believe this one is from Hobby Lobby. It's like a matte, it's not their ice film, but it's the opal finish, I believe, and the blue just matched perfectly, so I'm going to stripe that through the center of the chrome holographic vinyl stripe. That was a lot to say. And then I decided it needed something a little bit more, so I am going to add 2 more silver holographic stripes, and I am going to stripe the center with a plain lavender vinyl, and then the bottom with another stripe of blue. Once I had all of those vinyl stripes added, I'm going to give it a coat of epoxy before we move on to adding any decals or SVGs. I was still deciding on what I wanted it to say exactly. I have this jar of foil flakes that I got from Amazon forever ago, but they're smaller flakes, so I thought that this technique would work a little bit better with the smaller flakes. And I just mixed up my regular epoxy and then added some of those flakes right into the epoxy and then applied it as normal to the tumbler. I did wipe it a little bit off of the stripes just because I wanted those to kind of stand out on their own, and I didn't want it to be covered up very much, but I felt like the foil flakes just added a little bit extra dimension to the overall look of this. I gave it that coat of epoxy, and then I did a little bit of a light sanding, and then before I add my final coats of epoxy, I'm going to go ahead and go right in with this SVG that I cut out of 2 layers of vinyl. I wanted it to tie in with the stripes, so I did the offset in this same silver chrome holographic vinyl, and then I thought the front layer should be the lavender. There's a lot of blues going on in here, so I thought it would really stand out with the lavender color. I went ahead and picked the Sane, Have the Day You Deserve. I think I got this SVG off of Creative Fabrica or Etsy. I'll have to double check because I can't remember. But this design was for my Tumbler Club recipients, and I knew that this would be a huge hit, so I thought it was a fun saying, and I really wanted it to stand out. There's not a lot of other elements going on in this design, so I really wanted this to be the star of the show pretty much. So once I applied both layers of that vinyl, I added the offset layer in one swoop, and then I very carefully lined up the lavender. Some of them I just had to cut apart just to make sure I couldn't get it to line up in one swoop by itself, so I was just cutting it apart and adding them very carefully one by one or a few letters at a time. That way I could just ensure that it was lined up perfectly. My offset was not very thick, so sometimes it doesn't quite line up if you try to do it all at once. And after that, I gave it 2 final coats of epoxy and it was all done. I love that added foil just sprinkled in there. It just adds such a fun layer and extra dimension to this tumbler and the overall design. And I hope that I have inspired you in some way or another. And as usual, I will leave all of the information where to find me and the products that I used down in the description box. And I hope that y'all have a wonderful Easter tomorrow. And I will be back next week with another tutorial. I'll see y'all then. Bye, y'all.